Good evening, everyone. Hello, everybody on Zoom and everybody watching on YouTube. We're broadcasting live from Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator at McNally Robinson Booksellers. And today we are virtually gathered to celebrate the launch of Surviving the City, Volume 2, From the Roots Up, by Tasha Spillett, illustrated by Natasha Donovan. Tasha is here with us and we'll be discussing the event with tonight's moderator, whom I'll be introducing in just a moment. This book is, of course, the follow-up to the much acclaimed Surviving the City, Volume 1. Over the course of the evening, there will be an opportunity to ask questions of Tasha as time permits later on. So please do feel free to go to the Q&A box, which is right in the middle of your Zoom screen, and write in a question at any point. Rest assured you won't interrupt us, and we'll certainly get to them as we have time. Your host for this evening, Sonya Ballantyne, is a filmmaker and writer, originally from Mississauga Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. Her work focuses on Indigenous women and girls in non-traditional film genres such as horror, sci-fi, and fantasy. She is also the author of the really wonderful children's book, Carrie Berry Lynn. So please put your virtual hands together and welcome Sonya Ballantyne.
Tansei, everybody. Coming to you live from my studio apartment. So my name is Sonya Ballantyne, and I am a Swampy Cree writer, filmmaker, and local nerd. And it is my absolute honor to host this book launch for my surrogate cousin, Tasha Spillett, and her awesome graphic novel, From the Roots Up, the second volume of her Surviving the City series. So just a little info here. Tasha is an Inuit and Trinidadian educator, poet, and emerging scholar. She is passionately working in various community-led initiatives that center on land and water defense and the protection of Indigenous women and girls. She's currently working on her PhD in education through the University of Saskatchewan, where she holds a, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Vanier Canada Award. Her graphic novel, the first volume of Surviving the City, was a longtime bestseller here at McNally Robinson. So please clap in your heart for Tasha. And we will keep a little bit down too, because I know the baby's still sleeping. So, but so I wanted to know, so how did you get approached originally to do the Surviving the City series?
Mm-hmm. So originally, it was actually Miikwan Sinclair who approached me to see if I would be interested in working on a graphic novel with HighWater Press. And so Surviving the City wasn't an idea at that point. So I had a meeting with the absolutely fierce and incredible women who lead Portage and Main HighWater Press. And they basically were like, well, what do you want to write, Tasha? And gave me clearance to write whatever story was in my heart. And so then Surviving the City came about. And I did an interview with NCI earlier today, and Roz from NCI asked me, well, where did this story come from? And I said, I absolutely always believe that we're the experts in our own experiences. And so I couldn't tell anyone else's story. The only story that I have to tell are my own, and the stories of the people that I love and the people that I'm related to. And so that's where Surviving the City comes from. I'm born and raised here in Winnipeg. Of course, an Indigenous and Black woman navigating, being an urban person in the city. And that's the story I think belongs to many of us. And so I really hope that people can see little pieces of themselves reflected in Surviving the City, the first one, From the Roots Up, and the third one that's to come.
Yeah, and I've really been blown away by the graphic novels. Originally, I'm always so hesitant about reading Indigenous stories, even though I am an Indigenous writer, because I don't want it to be just filled with trauma. But I was connecting so much, especially with From the Roots Up, as a LGBT person, just focusing on how difficult it can be to be in touch with ceremony when there's still those prejudices that exist within our own cultures. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to ask how much of Surviving the City comes from your own lived experience, but I also what I would really want to know personally, have you received any memorable comments about the book specifically? Well, I guess probably volume 1 would be the big one. Like, have you heard from like from young kids? Like, what's been the response to it?
Yeah, so I'm really happy that, you know, I wrote these, I'm writing this series for all the brown kids, really, for the ones who, you know, never see themselves on the page, for the ones who never see, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful parts of our families and our communities written in stories. And so when I hear back from young people who are like, hey, like, you know, they get even the subtleties, especially like our humor, our, you know, the things in our families, you know, like the hangups or like maybe kind of like the strange things that go on in our Indigenous family dynamics that they can relate with. That makes me feel like, okay, like the story is living its own life and it's connecting with people in its own way. And that makes me feel, you know, that was my one hope for both stories, is that they go out and they live full lives and that they connect with people and make its own relationship with those people. um I was, to be completely honest, like, this is the tea, you guys. Completely honest, um I am and I was a little bit nervous about the reception of From the Roots Up. And I wasn't nervous. I guess I was nervous that, you know, like the ceremony people that you talked about when you were kind of introing this question, the ones that hold really, really tightly to those gendered, very harshly gendered protocols in our community. You know, people like hurt people, right? And so I was kind of nervous, and I am kind of nervous that maybe that reception by communities, segments of our communities who like have not done the healing to like understand that all people should have a place of honor, love, and respect in our communities, like there will be pushback. And then I decided, you know what, I don't care because I'd rather take the heat on some of these things than for even one of our young people feel like they don't belong in our ceremony circles. And, you know, that's the role of an auntie. The role of an auntie is, you know, to be the thicker skin. And I'm okay with that. And younger me, the one that was like probably, you know, writing for others or seeking approval or going after recognition more than anything, wouldn't have been okay with that. But, you know, like the mom in me now is like more fierce about ensuring that all of our young people, all of our relatives are healthy, safe, and well in our communities. And that's where they're supposed to be. We're all supposed to be home and keeping each other happy and safe and well.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Just in case you didn't know, Tasha has like a beautiful baby girl that we're trying to make sure stays asleep for right now. But yeah, like when I first, I think going on more on that, I got to read an advanced copy of From the Roots Up right before it came out, and before it was completely colored, so I didn't get to see all of it, and so I'm really excited to read it again. And so I remember I had met you previously at like on panels and stuff, and it was so cool to see the story you told. And I actually, the second I finished reading it, I sent you a message on Facebook saying that, well, I think I actually told you this book is what the community needs right now. And like, and I really do believe that, because there are so many, I think the younger kids are more open about issues like this, and we're the ones who have to basically get out of their way and let them take the ceremony to the next step. But I think again, like we have to be good people and have to have that space for everybody. And I just love that you put that into a story, because like even now I'm in like about to hit middle age, and I felt so connected to the characters you created, and how there is this sometimes people hurt, sometimes people are in a bad place. And I think it's really cool that you did that. And so you've spoken about this already, but have you always wanted to be a writer? Like, how did you get your start?
So I'm at my book launch. I shared this story about how I have this really vivid memory of being called to a teacher's desk in middle school, my English teacher, and her sitting me down with a piece of my writing and her looking at me and then looking at my writing and just saying, Tasha, you're never going to be very good at writing, so you should focus on something else. And then I just, I thankfully I had people in my life that just were really adamantly supportive of my natural gifts. And that teachers, what could have been a huge turn, what could have really prevented any of these stories from coming out, I look at it now and just think, thank you for teaching me how to be a better teacher, because it was really, the voices, the positive voices from, my family, my community, that really nourished the gifts that I have, took precedent over all that. And so, yes, I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to be a storyteller. Like my mom will say that I was always a storyteller. I think she was lying though. I was always a little bit of a liar. I'm just kidding. I was
a storyteller.
Always been a storyteller. And I've always loved, sharing different stories, and writing just happens to be the way that I can express these stories, that I truly believe don't, like, it's almost like, I'm not sure if you can identify with this, Sonya, but sometimes I don't even know where the stories exactly originate. Like,
yeah, I feel you.
I can't write them. If I sit down and somebody's like, okay, can you write me this 1,000-word piece? I can sit at my computer and it's like really trying to, like, chisel out these stories. It doesn't work. But then I'll be like, driving or, in the shower, and then I'll just be like, there's the story. And it comes and you're like, okay, well, I guess I better sit down and write the story. And so I've always just respected my relationship with writing in that way, that it seems to move through me and it has its own energy, and it's not something that I can really force. If it's there, it's there. And if it's not, then the writing just isn't very good. Yeah.
Oh, well, related to that too, you started largely as a poet, or and Surviving the City was your first books, correct? First narrative. So do you find, what's the hardest part about going from poetry to graphic novels?
For me, and I was just actually texting with David Robertson last night, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and I consider a part of our family too. But I was texting with him last night, and I said, I feel like I have commitment issues with writing. Like, I feel like those longer pieces, like, I can't get there. And I was just telling him how much I admire his longer pieces. And by the way, he has 3 simultaneous bestsellers right now on the McNally Robinson booksellers list. So that's incredible. But I was saying, I feel like I have a little bit of a commitment issue with writing, like getting to that page number that sometimes is hard for me to do with creative writing anyways. And so I'm slowly trying to work on that, like push myself farther. Poetry, I feel like it's just like, you feel it, you get it out, it's done, you walk away. But with these longer pieces, it's like, oh, wait, I still have to finish that storyline. Like, okay, well, like, I'll have to, it's definitely more of a process.
I saw a lot of your poetry roots in the graphic novel when I was reading it, and it was really beautifully written, and kudos to you for that. And but I wanted to know, somebody was asking this in the chat, but I was about to get to it. How has your experience as a teacher influenced the stories you choose to focus on? I imagine you encounter a lot of students who are probably going through similar issues as in the book, so I imagine that comes up a lot. But how has being an educator helped?
So before I answer that question, I just want to give all my love and respect to educators right now who are just doing the absolute most to keep their families safe, keep their students safe, and then do the tremendous job that we know teachers do every single day. So I just have so much love and respect for my colleagues from K to all the way to post-secondary. Thank you for all your work. I, as an educator, I saw, when I worked in grade 7 and 8 middle school teaching English, I saw how voraciously students connected with reading graphic novels, and how it was such a gentle point of entry to literature for lots of your learners, and especially learners who struggled with literacy. And so I was so excited to work with graphic novels as a medium, because it wasn't like, I didn't expect to be a graphic novelist at all. And so like from my experience as a teacher, I think that, graphic novels are a beautiful way to tell stories in a way that a lot of people can connect with. And it's a really interesting relationship to have. The artist author relationship for graphic novels is so important, because you're telling a story, you're doing your work of telling the story, but you also have to respect the skill and the sovereignty of the other professional who you're working with. So Natasha Donovan, she also told the story through her images. And so her and I, to develop that working relationship was a learning curve, but I'm so happy that we're slowly progressing. So yeah, like as a teacher, I think graphic novels are so powerful in the classroom. I think they open a door for learners who might not be who might not be the ones in the class and we run to the bookshelf and pick up the huge novels. And I think that it's really important, especially for Black and Brown students, to look on the page and see themselves, see their families in texts that have a whole variety of different storylines.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, because like I was one of those nerds who would always run to the bookshelf, and in my mind, regardless of like the cover, if like I always assumed characters were Cree, like I always assumed that, and yeah, and when I would like see the covers, like I remember I got in trouble in grade 5 because I thought I saw a cover of The Hobbit that had Bilbo as a white man, and I'm like, that's wrong, like why are you being wrong? And one of the things I loved about the book was, again, was how the characters, like the biggest part that hit me was when hold on, I'm just pulling this out, like I'll just take it up top, sorry. When like Des has short hair. That was one, like I know we're not supposed to be reading it aloud right now, but like that was what hit me the most, because in ceremony there's always this connection to the importance of hair, and I've never felt like my hair was that, like my hair is now is like something I've always been connected to, and that's also been a part of ceremony that I haven't been able to like that hasn't been embraced, because it's like you have to grow your hair long, it's a gift from a creator. And I really appreciate you for seeing what needs to be told, even if it's gonna like be hard for you to take that. But I guess because you have that big anti energy, you can handle it to protect the kids and keep them
and
safe.
Know what's more important than I guess these, like, these kind of like really stringent teachings is sovereignty. Like Creator gave us sovereignty over our bodies, and I think that young people expressing themselves and people expressing themselves, their own sovereignty, is so beautiful. And that is a traditional teaching. That is a traditional teaching. Being able to be in the world how Creator intended you to be in the world is absolutely a traditional teaching. Hey, my mom's dog is growling at me, so
I was worried. I thought
back here.
I thought it was a toilet briefly. I was like, oh man, I hope that's not here. Like,
This dog is an angry elder, by the way.
He's just like, what's going on? What are you talking about? So if anybody in the chat, anyone in the audience has any questions, please send them if you'd like. I have a few of my own, so I'll keep going. One question I love asking my friends who work in creative fields: what is your dream project?
Oh, my dream project, I'm for some reason, this is the Capricorn in me. The Capricorn in me is always like, what's next? What's the long game? In fact, before this, like early, my first thought today was like, what's my next book going to be? I'm doing a launch today. Like, what's the next thing going to be? And so I would love to see some of these stories on a screen. And that is like, I have no skill in this area. But I would love to see a Surviving the Sea or From the Roots Up in motion picture on a screen. I feel like that would be incredible. And so in this vein of the work that I do, that's the next step for me. That's the goal.
Well, I would love to help you with that because I've always wanted to tell like LGBT native stories, like ones that are like that can connect and ones that can just be there for the kids who need it because it is still like from I'm originally from a reserve and it's still LGBT issues are still something that isn't talked about and isn't really focused on and like is whispered about in horrible ways. And it's really not fair, especially for a young kid growing up on a res to be gay, to be bi, to be trans. It's just like it's an additional hardship in addition to being a brown person. And so yeah, like it's needed still. I've told like I'm gonna be screaming that the whole time while I hold the book outside of McNally's. This book is needed now. But we got a question from Nick earlier. Nick Cumberbatch was his name. He wanted to ask Tasha to explain her dual identity as an Aboriginal and Trinidadian, and to what extent each of these has influenced your writing.
So that's an interesting question. So full transparency, that's actually my father who has asked this question. And so, I carry both identities with me every day in the way that I live my life. I navigate this world. I was raised by a single mother who fiercely instilled both pride of both lineages into us, my sister and I. She raised us in ceremony, but she also raised us to understand that we come from a very powerful lineage on our African diaspora side as well. So she raised us, my mother, to understand, the power of Black liberation movements. We grew up understanding and knowing, the work of the Black Panther Party, beautiful revolutionary music coming from the Black community. And so I am thankful for her for really, giving us a strong understanding that we don't have to choose who we are, that we are beautifully whole and in no ways made up of several separate parts. And it's just so interesting now, like being an Indigenous person, a Black person who had, like I look at my daughter and genes are so interesting. So I am Cree and Trinidadian, and my husband is Anishinaabe, like pretty much 100%. And, we have this baby, and this baby came out. You roll like the dice, and you don't know what the physical characteristics are. And we have this little Black baby, and she's so gorgeous and so beautiful, and like, it's like she reached back into the gene pool, and like we have this dark skinned curly headed little baby. And I love that reminder. And earlier on in my identity, seeking out my own identity, a Black woman came to me and she asked the question, which one of your grandmothers are you prepared to deny? And that was such a powerful learning experience for me as somebody who I didn't grow up with a real strong connection with the Black community, being raised by a single mother who was non-Black. And so I struggled with having a connection with that side of myself. But her reminder really taught me that, I have a responsibility to own that side of my lineage and to explore it. And as a woman now, as a grown woman, it's been a really beautiful and healing experience to remake those connections that I didn't have so much growing up.
Yeah, and I imagine that'll be the same for your for your daughter, like having her navigate that as well. Like the Cree, the Anishinaabe, and the Trinidadian. So she's got a lot of great people to look up to. So I'm really excited to see her grow up and with the cute hair. So Jill asks, how do you balance school, writing, and family?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. So I had my daughter March 3rd, and we came home from the hospital March 4th we all know, a very different world. So I had my daughter after 36 hours of labor. We came out to the hospital. We came into the hospital. My husband drove us home, and pretty much within a handful of days, things in the city of Winnipeg were shut down because of the pandemic. And so for the first 43 days of my daughter's life, and for those people who are like mothers who have experienced any sort of postpartum difficulties, for the first 43 days of my daughter's life, I was so intensely scared of the world around us that I didn't even leave our front door. And then for the first 3 months of her life, I had little to no outside help because nobody was able to come into our home. And so honestly, this experience of becoming a mother has been so intensely humbling. And I don't exactly know how I'm doing it, to be completely honest. I don't know how I'm balancing being an author, a PhD student, a mother. But it's like, just when I feel like my tank is empty, I see my daughter. I'm like, this is like, okay, this is I might cry now because I'm so tired. But I see my daughter and it's like, okay, there's your reason to fill up the tank, and you just keep on going. And we come from women who have pulled miracles out of next to nothing to continue to push us forward. And I have that in me, and we just keep on going forward because, we can't stop. Like, there's no stopping. And we know that we need to remake a world that is worthy of our children. And so we keep on going. And that's what we do. I get up every day and we restart, and my girl is there, and we sing songs, and we just figure it out through the day. And sometimes that means, squeezing as many things as I can into her times or after bed, but we get it done.
Well, and I imagine too, like since everything is new to her, everything is new to you too, as her mom, and like just learning as we go, that sort of thing. Well, Laura asks, will there be a Cree Trinidadian character in a future book?
So thank you for that question. And I always feel like honesty is like the best way. And after I put out this graphic novel, it was, after it's gone to print and stuff like that, and you have a chance to see it, and you unbox the copy of your brand new graphic novel. And then I sat and did some reflection, and I said, well, where are the characters that look like me as an Afro-Indigenous person? And I really had to call myself in on that, because I like myself as a Cree Black woman, there's no Afro-Indigenous characters in my graphic novel. And so I thank you for that, and it's coming, and it was definitely a part of like my own reflective process to be like, hey, like you need to do better, essentially. And so I look forward to building that character, in those characters into the next graphic novel, the last part of the trilogy. But I'm also in discussions for another graphic novel. And so more stories to come, more characters that do justice to our very diverse community.
And you could probably write a memoir too, I imagine, and deal with having a Trinidadian Cree character in there that way. So Sharon asks, how will your experience with COVID-19 influence your next book?
So how am I experienced? I feel like the experience of being like, I call us pandemic parents because I don't know how to describe it otherwise. I feel like I really want to write about how difficult but how beautiful it is to have this almost like intensely sacred and intimate time with our children, to get to know our children. And a woman who mentors me through my PhD process, she was like, I was feeling so sorry for myself because I was like, my mom can't even come help me like with my baby. And she was like, what a beautiful thing it is to have this time with your daughter. I'm sure you will establish such an intimate closeness in this time. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, you mean there's another way of looking at this that's not like so sad about my own situation? And so I was really grateful for that. And she helped me see another way. And so I have been writing mostly poetry about the COVID-19 experience as a new parent. And like, it's been my last time in any public place was before I had my daughter 8 months ago. And so like, I haven't gone to a store, a gas station to get tea, nothing. And so we've been taking this very seriously. And I thank everyone who also has been taking this pandemic and the health precautions so seriously. But definitely it will shape my writing because it's been such an intense experience to parent in isolation. And we know, especially as Indigenous people, like we were never meant to parent in isolation. We were always meant to parent and to bring up our babies with our communities, with our extended families. And so parenting in isolation is completely unnatural for us. And so having had this experience has really opened up different stories and different ways of thinking about my own writing.
That's a great way to put it. Albert asks, how many people are involved in creating a graphic novel? I guess specifically this one. How many people were involved?
So my editor, Laura McKay, who is incredible, also an author herself. I have so much respect for that woman. She is so meticulous and committed to producing the best work possible. So thank you to her. Of course, the graphic artist, Natasha Donovan, who worked with me on both, and Will the Third as well, who put so much time and energy in getting the characters. And I just want to note, like, she's been so generous with her time because I kept on pushing her to create characters that look like Plains Nietzsche's, you know, and she's from the West Coast. So I was like, and she was so generous with her time and getting us there. So thank you. Albert McLeod, who was, you know, who came onto the project and gave that like loving auntie energy to making sure that the Two-Spirit content in this graphic novel was really taken care of. And really, you know, those really beautiful scenes where Des is coming into their own identity as a Two-Spirit person. Really, Albert was instrumental in making sure that those scenes were authentic, that the words hit right. And I'm so thankful for Albert and the time that he put into making sure that those parts of the graphic novel were done in a way that just does justice to the character of Des. And so I'm really thankful for that. Carissa Kopanis, my good friend who did the Anishinaabe Moen translations. Because like I'm Cree and we decided to go with Anishinaabe one for the language pieces for the characters. And my father-in-law, Jerry Sumner, did the first book, and my good friend, my sister, Carissa Kopanis, did the second. And so I'm so thankful for her. Of course, and then there's all the technical people, like the people who do the lettering. And so this story didn't start and end with me. It started with me and then went to several other hands who kind of like gently and lovingly carried it through to then the production point and the point in which the reader will have it in their hands. And so, we do nothing good we do alone. So we never, any greatness that we can achieve is done alone. It is the work of many different people who allow it to get to that point. So thank you to all those people.
Was awesome. Like, yeah, like a lot of people think this is done in isolation, but it's always like it's a project. Like it's like a house or a tree. It grows with a lot of different ingredients. So yeah, like everybody like understand the work that goes into it. But I guess like sorry, there's a few more questions to be asked, but like I just wanted to thank you, Tasha, for your time here. Like it is so amazing to talk to you. Like I'm hoping once COVID is over, I can meet your daughter and meet you in person for coffee or something, or like to watch the baby while you go outside and get whatever you need. So I just wanted to shout out to everybody. Pick up Tasha's new book, From the Roots Up, Surviving the City, Volume 2. Buy lots of books, please, so Tasha's baby can live a good life. So we wanted to say that, but yeah, like thanks a lot, Tasha, and I hope like everything goes well with you. Kiss your baby for me, and thanks a lot.
Sonia, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I hope you're safe and well at home. And thank you just for everyone doing their parts to make sure that we're all safe so that our families and communities can come together physically as soon as we can. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing all you can to keep each other safe.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Hello, everyone. I'm just popping in at the very end just to let you know how you can go about purchasing copies of that book. We do have many copies of Surviving the City, both Volume 2 and Volume 1 at McNally Robinson Booksellers. You can buy them online. You can give us a call. You can visit us in store, or you can even call us and have it have us courier you a copy, regardless of where you are. We ship nationally, internationally, and we even courier books within the city itself, so you don't even need to leave your house. I'd like to continue the gratitude going along just for one more moment. I'd like to thank HighWater Press at Portage and Main Press for publishing these books in the first place. So thank you for giving us a reason to gather here this evening. I'd like to thank Sonya Ballantyne for her incredible hosting, for coming on board for this. And I'd also like, of course, to close off the evening by thanking Tasha Spillett for writing these incredible books. Thank you all so much for joining us here and on YouTube. Have a very good night.